The Guardians win again, as much as they tried to lose this one. We'll talk about the game. Currently, the Twins are losing, so we'll get into standings. We'll talk about who's replacing 99 when they head to Toronto on today's episode of Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Guardians. I'm your host, Jeff Ellis, as I have been since the beginning of this. There's been no substitutions, changes, ever. I've been here for nearly 800 episodes. Before that, I was a lead draft and prospect analyst at Scouting 24/7 and many a Cleveland sports blog. I want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever you should get podcasts. And if you're going, hey, I thought you weren't recording today, I found a second burst of energy. It's late, but I'm going. For those who missed it, this is the second time I'm recording this evening. My Windows 11 issues continue, and for whatever reason, again, recorded a whole episode with no sound. Did a Locked On Now with no sound. Eventually got it all figured out. So it should be easy. It should be take two, right? Everything I've already kind of done and talked about. The last one was occurring as the game was happening, so you got kind of that anxiety as I jumped in and was like, what's James Karinchak going to do here? What's going to happen with 99? Bases are loaded. That's kind of how this game went, right? For those who missed this one, a 3-2 win where the Guardians didn't get a base runner after the third inning. At least no hits. There's 20 players in a row set down for the Guardians. They came out of House of Fire and then crashed to the earth after that. On the other side of things, Detroit had so many opportunities. You go into the fourth inning, they get 2 runs across, but they had runners at second and third with 1 out, I believe. And Savali worked his way out of that. Then you come back in the fifth, Sam Henches struggles out of the gate, has a runner at first and third with nobody out, and Andres makes a heck of a call. Instead of going for the double play, which is what, you just get, that gets burned in your brain. Go for the double play. He knows that Scope doesn't run well, throws the ball to home and gets him out. And that's the difference in this game. What a smart, heady play. They get out of that inning with no damage. Then you come to the eighth, where it's still a 3-2, in the eighth, 3-2 lead, and you get, a single and then a hit batter. And, 99 was having a hard time. This was not his best performance. And it's only been, he's now over 15 innings this year. I'm still not quite ready to call him 100% back, but he has been quite good, most of the time. There's still those times the command has always been his issue, and it definitely was an issue in this one. But it wasn't 99 that saved them. If you watch that inning when, can't remember who got the hit, but when the hit happened, they could have sent the runner. And I felt like a lot of that was them fearing Nolan Jones. They decided not to run on Nolan Jones, have the bases loaded with 1 out at the time, and 99 comes out, gets some, I believe, full count for each of them, but then strikes out the next 2 batters. They get out of it. They win 3-2. Savali was only able to go 4 innings, but he was actually pretty effective in those 4 innings. So I thought, before we get into, all the little things we normally do with the game, I was watching this one, and I don't always watch the local broadcast, and tonight, to some degrees, reminded me why. One, I appreciate it if you're watching it. Anyone else catch the nugget about, what makes Brian Shaw so good is his ability to just, forget about a loss, or forget about a bad appearance. And all I could think as they're talking about this is, he's had a lot of practice, right? Of course he can get, the guy hasn't posted, he's got 5 straight years of posting a negative WAR, and somehow still, he's third on this team in appearances. No, second in appearances. Second behind Class A, over 40 appearances. And remember, his escalators in his contract, he's got a great agent. They're not for being effective because he hasn't been. He's got a negative 0.6 WAR right now. He's been the opposite of effective. It's based on appearances. And knowing the way that Tito is going to overuse him, even though he's not, he was fine tonight, but he has not been an effective pitcher for the most part this year. And they just keep rolling him out there. And, yeah, he's gonna end up second on this team in salary this year if he hits all of his escalators for appearances, which he might. At the rate he is going, he might end up being like a $5 million signing. Plus, they'll have to pay him, some money for his buyout. It's fun times with Brian Shaw. The other funny thing in the broadcast was when they're talking about Whitaker and Trammell, and then talking about the comparative of the wizardness of Omar and Robbie, and it's like, it's hard to even talk about Omar Vizquel anymore with all the things that have come up since his playing career. It's like we all thought Albert Bell, and not to say that Albert Bell didn't have his own share of issues, but man, he looks like a choir boy compared to what we've seen with Omar over the past few years. It's amazing. He was the last person I would have guessed that with. But you'd think they would talk with those, the people who are representing this team. We'd be like, we probably shouldn't reference that dude. Let's just leave that in the past. If you want to talk about great infield combinations, talk about all the time with Kipnis and Lindor and how they were both multi-time All-Stars. Let's go there. Let's not go back. It was a little bit. I was like, man, I can't believe they were gonna sit here and talk poetically about. Like I said, there's been if it was something, if it was one thing, but since there's been 3 separate things that have come out with Omar, yikes. But yeah, no, the more yikes was Shaw. No, he's very good. He has short-term memory because he's had 10,000 hours of experience of poor pitching, and again, it hurts to a degree to say that, because when I sat here and did my Ultimate Indians team, going through and talking about WAR, talking about roles, I talked about Shaw as potentially in that bullpen, is one of the greatest relievers this franchise has had. He's just not that guy anymore. He wasn't effective in Colorado. He wasn't effective in Seattle. He's not been effective in Cleveland, but we're still rolling him out there. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of this game. We're going to then talk also about, the 99 replacement as this team heads to Toronto. And we'll have maybe some peek ends to see if Minnesota keeps losing, as well as some standings checks on today's Locked On Guardians. Listen, I can tell you, your liver it's essentially your body's filter, right? If you want your body to run at its best, you need your liver to be healthy. And when your body isn't running at its best, one of the first things that can have issues is your liver. It's a very important part of your body. And if you want better liver health, you want Liver Health Formula by Pure Health Research. It contains 8 liver-boosting super nutrients like turmeric, beets, artichoke extract. I got an artichoke up there. I'm going to bake it maybe tomorrow in the oven. Artichoke is fantastic, but it also helps your liver, and they're using great ingredients like that in this Liver Health Formula, all of which are going to work together to help that liver wake up and turn into a toxin-flushing, fat-burning machine. No more uncomfortable digestion, no more feeling tired and low on energy, and best of all, Liver Health Formula makes it easier to maintain a healthy body weight long-term. As listeners of our show, you can try Liver Health Formula risk-free today and get a free bottle of Curb Fit with your order. Curb Fit is safe, all-natural, and appetite suppressant makes it easy to say no to naughty foods. This makes it the perfect complement to Liver Health Formula. Go get liverhelp.com/MLB to learn more. Again, that's getliverhelp.com/MLB. Try the Liver Health Formula completely risk-free and claim your free body of Curb Fit with your order. Go to getliverhelp.com/MLB to get started today. The other thing I did think about as I was watching this game, and I couldn't help but think about, was seeing Andrew Chafin come in and just dominate and be like, why isn't he on the Guardians? Detroit's not holding on to him for any good. Maybe that's part of the reason Al Avila, it's kind of sad that he got fired, just because he was the only Latin American GM in baseball, a league that is 30% Latin American, and he was it. So you would have, that was to a degree sad. But listen, he's got a $6.5 million contract this year. It's just the way it's set up. It's a little bit. No, that's for next year. Wait a second. This is all screwy. Because it has him with the Cubs. Did he get traded from the Cubs? I'm trying to kind of track this out. Yeah, he signed as a free agent with Detroit. I don't know. He wasn't traded to the Cubs. Why does it have the Cubs listed in 2022? I don't know. I guess because the Cubs decided to buy out his contract. So he signed a $6 million contract with the Tigers. That's why this got all messy, because it included that. they should have put them in order, right? Like the buyout happened, then he signed with the Tigers, not signed with the Tigers buyout. Just get the order right. Baseball Reference. So he's making $6 million this year. It's a $6.5 million player option. If it doesn't get picked up, it's a $500K buyout. So he was owed a little more than owed a little more than $3 million. Not a huge amount. And like, there's a good chance because here's the thing. Would he pick up his player option? Even with the great year he's having, I think there's a good chance. So that's the downside. Like, you might have to pay 6.5 next year. The reason I think he might pick it up is 6.5, by the way, would be the highest amount of money that Andrew Chafin has ever earned. He has never made that much money in his career in a season. His previous high was $6 million this year. And before that, he was at $3 million. Which, again, I mean, those are fantastic money amounts. Don't get me wrong, but as a baseball player who's already 33, who's going to be 33 years of age or has already turned 33, he'll be 33 next June, so he's 32. You know, it's going to be hard for him to turn down a 6.5, but he has been almost every single season a positive pitcher. I mean, 2020 was a weird year, and that's the one year he didn't post a positive WAR. In 2021, I mean, he was worth across between Oakland and the Chicago Cubs, he was worth $2.9 million. It's almost weird they didn't pick up his option, or $2.9 million. 2.9 WAR. That is a phenomenally high amount for a reliever. It's a high usage reliever. He got $6 million with that $6 million player option, 6.5 million actually player option. So, and he's, again, this year at 32 years of age, 0.7 WAR. Cleveland needs a lefty reliever. I think it would have been great. Chafin for Shaw, and of course maybe you give him Battenfield. Maybe I can't see it costing you one of your top 10 prospects. I can't even see it costing you one of the top 20 guys I talked about, because he is owed money and he is older, and he's, like I said, at the end of the day, I would, if it costs you someone, maybe it ends up, especially if they're taking a contract the other way to help balance out money, it's like, maybe it cost you the equivalent of someone like Jose Tena, since he is kind of like Willie Castro was at a similar point in time a few years ago. Maybe it's something like that, but I would do that for 2 years. This team needs a lefty reliever. They don't have one. I think he would have been a great addition. And yes, does it help that he's an Ohio boy? I mean, it makes it easy to sell. It makes people happy. It doesn't bring any extra value outside of that. But now that we've talked about Chafin, who, if you missed it, he was in the 8th, 1 inning, 1 strikeout, no base runner. I mean, their bullpen combined for 4 innings with 5 Ks and no base runners. Cleveland had 8 hits and a walk, so that is 9 opportunities. They got 3 runs. That's expected. Other side, 8 hits, I believe 2 hit batters in this one. Yep, and an error. So they had 11 opportunities, which is closer to 4 runs typically. But they only got 2, and it's because of that tightrope magic. Detroit probably should have won this game. They even had, 3 extra base hits. Cleveland only had the 1 triple by Steven Kwan, who reached base twice in this one. Kwan and Andres. Those guys easily are 2 of our 3 stars in this game. Let's give the other ones, like, do you give it to Savali? I think let's give it to Will Benson. His hit, I believe, knocked in the 3rd run, which was the winning run. He had the game-winning RBI. This isn't hockey, but I'm already stealing 3 stars. And it was his first major league hit. I understand they brought in a lefty in Giovanni Soto, but let's just let the kids play. Like, Owen Miller wasn't going to do anything. You knew it. I knew it. There's no point in Benson for Miller in that situation. And, like, Oscar Gonzalez probably covers more ground in outfield. Nolan Jones has a better arm. It's kind of a lateral move. I get the logic at least there to a degree, but just leave Benson in. Miller hasn't done anything since, May on a consistent basis. I wouldn't be pinch hitting for Will Benson in that situation. We talked about Steven Kwan here as one of the 3 stars. He is now hitting over 300 this year. I have to really dig into the numbers and dig into the new rule change, because one of those, the Rookie of the Year rule change, I'm just going to adjust this slightly angle there so I don't have to keep moving my chin around and angle. But for those who don't remember, when they changed the Rookie of the Year this year, if a guy finishes top 2 in the Rookie of the Year, they gain an extra year of service time. So instead of being a 1 year in the books, you have 2 years in the books. So Kwan isn't going to be top two. That's Julio Rodriguez and Adley Rutschman. Those guys are definitely the top two. I don't think there's really much debate with what... I mean, Rutschman... You can make a case that Rutschman's the best catcher in baseball right now. You can... And Julio's one of the most exciting young hitters. That third... So those two will it's... Adley was hurt, but one also feels like they waited to promote him. And if he had gotten healthy and just immediately been called up... I don't know, because here's the thing. If you are, originally the talk was if you were a top prospect, a top 100 prospect as listed by ESPN or MLB, which I hate that they're making it that way. It should just be if you were a rookie who started the year. Not this idea of a top-end prospect, just a rookie. Now, I didn't see that quoted in all places I looked, so we'll see. But the idea was that if you started the season as a rookie on the opening day roster and finished top 3 in the Rookie of the Year race, your team would get a first-round pick. Could Steven Kwan be there? Potentially. Again, I need some clarification on that. Did he have to be a top 100 prospect? It's a tight competition for that third spot. The American League is a lot deeper with rookies, a lot more deep with rookies than the National League. You got the two Braves guys, and then the American League, you've got Julio, Adley. And then you've got Jose Miranda with the Twins. You have Jeremy Pena with Houston. You have Joe Ryan with the Twins. Did I already say Joe Ryan with the Twins? No, I said Miranda with the Twins. You got two Twins guys. You got Pena. I mean, Bobby Witt's the big name, and he hasn't quite lived up to it. But if I told you right now, the 6th highest batter WAR amongst rookies belonged to Oscar Gonzalez. Kwan sits 4th right now. He's behind the big two and Pena. Pena has slowed up a bit. We'll see. And there's going to be some old school voters who honestly will vote for the guy who hit 300 as a rookie. Like, that's such a hallowed ground. To me, it's more that he's got nearly a 390 on base percentage. I get it. He doesn't have much power, but man, he has been something special for the Guardians. And I read, Travis Sawchuk does some great work on the score, and he has a piece that I recommend, checking out on. And one of the big revelations for me in that is, they've talked about using the weighted balls with pitchers to help them build up strength and help add some velocity. Apparently, Steven Kwan is using weighted bats, and he has increased, his bat speed was below league average, pretty significantly below league average, and he has worked on it, and it is almost up to league average, and at peak, it is there. So he is continuing to get better as a hitter because he's even making himself swing faster. And there's, using lightest bats possible while practicing with heavier bats and things like that. It's really interesting to look at. We're going to come back in segment 3, talk about Peyton Battenfield. If you didn't hear it, he is the player that's been called up. We'll get into, a few more of the small roster stuff. Jake Jewell being sent down after not having pitched at all. Maybe, I don't think they can call him up right away, but what's going to happen with Cody Morris this week as well on today's Locked On Guardians. Blue Nile is the original online jeweler. They were there first. They have been doing it the best. As I always say, jewelry is expensive. I know, I'm blowing your mind. At least the good jewelry is expensive. And if you want to get nice, original jewelry, you want to get 24/7 support, you want to get fine jewelry or wedding jewelry, you should be checking out Blue Nile. Make your moments sparkle with jewelry from Blue Nile. And going on right now is the Blue Nile Anniversary Sale. Save up to 40% on classic fine jewelry pieces and 25% on engagement settings. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. So let's get into... I was wrong on multiple things. None of my predictions from yesterday's show came true. They sent Jake Jewell down. In terms of who, they didn't, they're not calling up Nick Enright when they go to Toronto. I didn't get any of these. None of these are correct. It is not one of my shining moments in terms of correctly picking what they're going to do. They sent down Jake Jewell. I thought specifically because he hadn't pitched and was a fresh arm, they might keep him up and send down Morgan because he had pitched the other day. I mean, they're They're going to need to do something. They used, 5 relievers today to cover those 5 innings after Savale went out of this one. Savale, again, had a pretty solid outing. It just, he couldn't go very deep. And, I mean, that the 4th inning, he gave up 2 runs, but, man, he walked a tightrope to not give up more. So credit him there. They sent down Jewell to bring up Savale. I'll be curious to see if there's any more moves coming, just because, again, they spent the pen heavily today, and it was 3 relievers the day before. I don't know if we will see Class A tomorrow. We'll probably see 99 again tomorrow, because he's getting the weekend off. They've already announced that when he is the only unvaccinated player, when they go to Toronto, he's not coming. They're going to call it Peyton Battenfield. And I thought this was an interesting choice, and I did not profile him yesterday. And the reason I didn't profile him yesterday is he just hasn't been that effective. He was a 9th round pick out of Oklahoma. I'm trying to remember exactly which round. He was not a high pick. Yeah, 9th round pick. Thing is, outside of his freshman year, where it was only like 6 innings, he has always missed bats. His lowest strikeout rate before he came to Cleveland was a 9.96 as a sophomore at Oklahoma State. His strikeout rates in the minors have been stellar. Came to Cleveland last year, goes to AA, and his strikeout rate had been over 11 in Cleveland. It was only about 35 innings, but dropped to 9. And this year, it's 5.86. His walk rates that had always been in the 1s jumped to over 3. Now, 3 isn't bad. 3 is still good. But when you go from being like 1.7 to 3, that is a big change. So his strikeout rate is almost half of where it was a year ago, and his walk rate is almost double. The other side of things, he leads the Guardians minor leagues in innings pitched. I'm sure he expected to have had an opportunity by now. He's seen lots of, Hunter Gaddis passing by, who, at the start of the year, if I was making a list of who was certainly going to be added to the Rule 5, Battenfield would have been on that list, and Gaddis would have been a maybe. Things change, obviously. But, yeah, it's just to talk about Lavastida and Naylor and their the difference between 21 and 22 for those two guys, it stands out. And it's, they're rewarding Battenfield for putting in the innings. The fact that he has been, every time they've needed a starter, it hasn't been him. He has been overlooked. If he had already, if they had to add him to the 40-man last offseason, they would have added him, and he probably would have gotten some of those Pilkington opportunities. But instead, he has been down there in AAA, and I don't think they're adding him. I reached out and mentioned Andrew at Fever Dog, and he sent me some additional information on this. He will accrue 3 days of service time. He doesn't, obviously is not added to the 40-man roster. This doesn't affect the 40-man at all. It essentially is a way to reward someone who maybe you weren't planning to add to the 40-man, kind of like they did with Tanner Tully at points this year when they had the COVID issues. Now, I say that, but at the same time, we saw some of those guys stick around and get multiple opportunities, being kind of the stretch guys for this organization. But yeah, and then on the other side, Karinchak will not get 3 days of service time and will not get paid for not playing. So, Battenfield he's a starter all the way. Again, it's just interesting that he's come to Cleveland and immediately the strikeout rate dropped. And what's interesting is he's been less home run prone this year. I don't know if he's working on something or what is going on, but you don't see a lot of guys who have nearly, a 40% drop in home run rate going from Akron, which is built like a major league park in dimensions, to Columbus, which is a bandwagon. It's very easy to hit the ball out there. So it's an interesting change. Good for Battenfield, though. He's getting this opportunity. I assume they'll let him get in. You can't promote him and not let him play because, again, I don't think they're planning to add him to the 40-man roster in the offseason. So let's get into standings. Close that up. As of now, last I checked, it was an 8-4 game in Minnesota. Let's see if that's still the case. Or not in Minnesota, in LA, where the Twins are facing the Los Angeles Dodgers. Where is that score? Apparently my screen decided to move off of that score. It's now, it's an 8-5 final, so it is official. Cleveland is now up a game in the wild card. One of the big additions, Michael Fulmer, picks up the loss for For Minnesota, the Griffin Jacks is the one who really struggled for them. Not the best start for Sonny Gray. I mean, this was a highly active team at the deadline, and they've had a harder schedule. What's interesting is with this loss, they're now a game behind Cleveland. And by the way, if you weren't paying attention, Cleveland is now tied in record with Baltimore and Tampa. That's right. Baltimore and Tampa have the same record. If the season ended today, I don't know what the tiebreaker would be, but I mean, the MLB website has Baltimore ahead of Tampa in the playoffs. Crazy, right? Remember how we were all talking about, and that's the thing, that Baltimore team sold at the deadline. I know they're ahead of schedule and this and that, but they traded Trey Mancini away. They've won 2 in a row. That's what, for 3 losses in a row for Minnesota. Cleveland has won 4 in a row. Cleveland's got to just keep getting the job done. They need to beat Detroit tomorrow. Detroit is historically bad offense. I mean, I really like that team. If you had told me at the start of the year that Tarek Skubal would turn himself into one of the best young lefties in baseball, I'd be like, okay, the Tigers are winning this division maybe. They had the pitching. I didn't expect their entire staff to get hurt. I didn't expect every single hitter to underperform. It's been crazy. I don't even know what's going on there. I mean, Brad Ausmus isn't it? No, it's not Brad Ausmus. It's AJ Hinch is obviously an intelligent manager, but boy, things have gone wrong in Detroit, and Cleveland needs to keep piling on to that sadness and take advantage of the fact that they can build up a bit of a lead here before going to Toronto, who is starting to run away with that top wild card spot. They have change that, because Seattle is a half a game behind them, but still, I mean, their winning percentages, Seattle and Toronto, are higher than Cleveland's. So yeah, those are some tough teams. You look at a lot of the separators, it really feels like the Yankees, the Astros, and the Toronto Blue Jays are kind of the 3 top tier teams. Everyone else is kind of competing beneath them. But as we saw at the recent weekend series against the Astros, you never know what's going to happen in baseball. But on the other side, here we are. Right? Mid-August, Guardians have a 1-game lead in the Central, as we all expected. Enjoy this team. It is a fun team. It has... my one knock right now is, we're calling up all the young kids and not letting them play. I'd like to still see them play a little bit more, but I also realize Tito's going to stick with Miller until they take him away, the same way he stuck with Clement until they took him away, the same way he will stick with Shaw until that toy gets taken away. That is where it's going to be with this team. Oh, I finally remember my last note. Cody Morris has to be activated on the 12th. We assume Jake Jewell would be out and off the 40-man. He has to be added to the 40-man. He does not have to be promoted. But the other takeaway from the show was Andre not trying to be like, keep this name in mind, remember this name. I mean, he is decimating AAA right now. If he was healthy, I think he would have had a chance as a starter this year. He is definitely going to be a reliever. I think, Lavastida being on the 40-man, Morris being on the 40-man, those are 2 very likely people to be added after September 1st when we get the roster expansion. With Morris maybe before then. Honestly, if this was OOTP baseball and I was running this team, I mean, obviously I never would have signed Shaw, but a guy in Shaw's situation where his contract, he's going to keep going up. You're going to have to pay him more money even though he's not playing well. He should be, if I was in charge of the Guardians, he would be let go. I'd be like, sorry, Tito. Guess what? It's going to save us money for next year. It's going to save us money overall. And he's just not doing anything to justify keeping him. We've got this young flamethrower. It's time for him to come up. Because unless you're sending down Eli Morgan, who are you taking off this team? Are you sending down Nick Sandlin, who's been really effective since he came back? You're not sending down 99. If Morris is ready to go, there's only one player that is conceivable, and that's Brian Shaw. I'm Jeff Ellis. This has been the Locked On Guardians podcast. Remember, rate and review, download daily. It helps. We're getting close to 500 subscribers on the YouTube, so please, if you have not, go and subscribe there. After that, the goal is 1,000, because another stream of revenue would be very nice for this show. And as I end every episode now, or basically since the name change, go Guardians, go.